Coughlin. Travis Foster, 19.
Matthew Boucher, I'm 19 years old.
Do you play video games?
Yes.
Oh yes, all the time.
Yes, I do. Very often.
Now and then, yes.
How often do you play them, and how serious would you say you play them?
I play them every day.
Usually about once a week. Maybe more, depending as to how much I'm into the game I'm playing. And I like to say I take them about moderately seriously.
Not very, honestly. In earlier years, I would have said hardcore, but in more recent years, I would probably say more casual.
What is your experience with the horror genre in general?
Not very much, actually. Aside from a few of the old Resident Evil games, 1, 2, and 0, I really don't have too much experience with survival horror games.
The two main horror games that I played was Resident Evil 4, which I liked a lot. It had a very good shooting gameplay along with it. And then I also played Silent Hill 2, which I didn't like the controls to it, but I did like the great atmosphere that it had surrounding the entire town.
Do you have any opinions on horror games or the genre of horror in general extending beyond video games?
When it comes to horror video games, it is definitely a unique experience because you're basically controlling yourself. You know, when you're watching a horror movie, you can shout at the screen as much as you want, but the girl is still going to go into the room when you know she's basically... So it's kind of a unique experience, but the one downside to horror games is that in most cases the developers will deliberately make your character weak and will make the controls clunky so that it'll be hard to navigate. And the idea is that by making you weaker, it makes the threat stronger, which makes the gameplay element of video games a little... that's the basic idea, is that they're trying to keep you in suspense of the greater threat and something.
I like horror movies. If Silent Hill is anything like that, I'll probably like the game I'm going to play here. But I like the old Resident Evils, but I really wasn't that scared too much by them. There was a few instances where I was low on ammo, but usually I just find some more ammo and just pop a cap into everything I saw. I played the old Resident Evils like an action game mostly.
Have you heard of the video game called Silent Hill 3 or had any experience with it?
I've heard some of it, some stuff about it. I heard it was a direct sequel to the original Silent Hill. The second one kind of ignored the first one and focused on its own plot, so... There's a few things here I imagine I'm not going to get, but I imagine I'll just, sit back and enjoy the game and not really have too much trouble with it.
I've heard about it a lot. I've had friends who've talked about it before. I've watched different YouTube videos about it. Although I've only heard about it, but I've never actually played it beforehand.
What are your opinions on other horror games you've played?
For the most part, when it comes to horror games, they are pretty cool because there's something completely different. They're not the kind of running gun action that I play with other games. The main con, like I said, is pretty much the controls. They're usually much weaker than other games, but on the plus side, it does add a much needed horror element, and it's something completely different than what other games in mainstream are.
Well, again, like I said, I've only really played the old Resident Evils. I really like them. There was very few instances where I felt scared. I mean, the only times in those games where I felt, scared was when something really threatening popped out at me and I was low on ammunition or low on health or something like that. I was more afraid of dying in the video game sense rather than actually being afraid. So, I don't scare very easily. So,
What in your words do you feel after playing this portion?
I feel a little confused. I think that's kind of the purpose of the game, trying to keep you in the dark about certain things and mystified. I mean, I did pretty much skip all the cutscenes since I was on a time limit and was trying to experience the gameplay, which is, I feel, is the most important part of the game. But I feel like it's a game that, kind of presents itself as, mysterious and dark and that kind of stuff.
Well, for the most part, it was just kind of a great feeling of suspense. Silent Hill is always famous for developing that atmosphere that always
Was this game more effective in drawing emotional response to you than other forms of media in the same genre, like movies and such?
Kind of half and half in a sense. Like there was like just kind of certain instances in which like just that would happen and you don't know what it is. Like that one instance where you would knock on the bathroom door and the person would knock back. Like that was creepy. And then you open the door and then there's nobody in there, so you're wondering what the just happened, and that kind of stuff like that. So it keeps you in suspense and you don't always know what's going to happen, and that's how it's kind of different from movies that I like about it.
I felt it was about even, pretty goodly on par. When I was running from the monsters, I did feel a certain element of fear, because, you know, a lot of those monsters were pretty intimidating, and, you know, I was constantly being told by everyone that it would either be not worthwhile to take those monsters out, or I would just be ridiculously outgunned or whatever.
Okay, name some specific elements that trigger the story's emotional response to you.
Probably the very dark, mysterious, creepy atmosphere of the game. It really feels like run down, like definitely a place I wouldn't want to find myself wandering around in, having no idea what to do.
Most emotional response, probably definitely when we go into the other world, which is like basically the evil side of Silent Hill. And then it's like old and abandoned, and it seems like what was once a place full of life is now just dead all around. It pretty much shows you that you're no longer a campus anymore. That really puts you out right there.
What was the most ineffective?
The most ineffective is just basically when you ever do backtracking or just having to run around from place to place. Like I said before, the controls aren't that great. So when you're not taking part of the atmosphere, you're noticing just how bad the controls are.
Probably the controls. The controls of this game were, they feel a little clunky, very hard to get used to. I feel if I played the game, you know, maybe from start to finish and played it for more than, you know, the time limit I was given, the controls, I'd probably get used to them, but again, that might be part of what the designers were going for. Maybe make the controls a little complex, so it's harder to escape situations with monsters and tough enemies or places where you gotta get out of there fast.
What is your experience with the platforming genre?
I guess I played mostly platform games.
I've played a few. I enjoy them. They're fun.
Do you have any opinions on the genre?
It's kind of an older genre, but it's a classic.
I guess it's the one I'm most comfortable with. They're very fun to play, you know, just get right into, start playing.
Have you heard of Super Mario Galaxy before, or had any experience with it?
I haven't actually played before, but I've definitely heard of it.
Have you heard of the game Super Mario Galaxy, and have you had any experience with it?
Yes, I've beaten it.
So what, in your words, do you feel after playing this portion of the game?
It's kind of boring. I've already done it before.
Do you think this game was more or less effective than in drawing a response than another game in this format, the genre?
Yeah, I think it's a little less effective than, say, Little Big Planet. That one's more personalized.
What elements from this game do you think drew the strongest response from you?
Beating stuff up.
And then in reverse, the least?
The tutorials.